Good morning, I'm Cody Henriksen. Today we'll be working with how we can get information about the state of an object in Java using the idea of a getter. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have. As you can see right here, I've got a different version of the DebugDuck class we were working with earlier when we were talking about our constructors and overloaded constructors. And so we have 3 different constructors right here, and we have some data members that go along with that. And right now when I try and access this, I have my controller class open on the other side. You can see I have in my start method, I'm making a DebugDuck named temp. And it's a new DebugDuck, it's called SuperDuck, and I say system.look at the DebugDuck, and I say system.println temp. So we can just take a quick look at what we have access to this, because as you can see over here on the left-hand side of the screen, I have no access to my data, because all my data members, like they should be, are private, because information hiding says all of our data members that belong to an object should be private, because only the object has the ability to control whether or not you're going to be changing them, and that had happened right now only in the constructor. So if I go ahead and run this application right here, click my play button for me, and I run my app, and boom, look at the DebugDuck, and DebugDuck design.model.debug.act gobbledygook. Oh, yeah. So when I use the default toString method, when I print off something right there inside the console, it doesn't do anything good for me. It simply just gives me information. That's all I have access to if I don't write any ways to get into the object. And the only way to access that internal state, or the idea about what's inside the object, is I have to make it so I can access this private data somehow, and I do that by adding public methods. Public methods are I can share and retrieve that private information about the internal state of the object. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to collapse out my constructors just so they don't have to take up space, and we can still see what we're working on. So collapse these out really fast. And I like to put all of my getters together as a group at the same order as they are in the declarations section. Java doesn't care about that. I just like it so I can make sure I don't forget anything. And so I'll put them all together, and I always do them after the constructor, just so I know where they're at. And so I'll just do a quick little comment, so whack whack, and then I'll write getters, saying that's how they are. And a getter has one of the easiest ways of doing a method. It's also called a accessor if you want to do the formal name for it, but getter sounds so much cooler. So to make a getter, it's really, really hard. All we have to do is write public for the visibility, because everything we're doing in this is going to be public automatically. We want to be able to access the information externally. And then for a return type of the method, the return type will match exactly whatever the return type we see up here in the declaration section. So name will be return a string, color will return a string, question answers returns an int, and has answer returns a boolean. And so that makes it really easy. So we'll start off with the top one, and so it's going to be a string method, and it's going to be called get, and then in camel case, the variable name with no parameters in the parameter list. So we have right now public string get name. We have the red underline of doom because I haven't actually done anything with it yet. So the first thing and the only thing, in fact, that I need to do inside my getter is I need to return that data member. So I return and then this dot name. And so by using the this dot name, again, the this dot says I'm talking about the current object, the one right here, the one we're working with. And so I'm going to return the name value for this current object. And as you can see right now, I have that yellow underline of uselessness that is gone from my string. It's because I'm actually actively using it. I'm not just initializing the value in the constructor. I'm now using that variable in code. So now I can access the DebugDuck's information. I can get the name out of it because I now have a name method right here inside my DebugDuck object. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit Command-Shift-S to save everything, making sure everything's available for me. And so now I can ask the DebugDuck, and I can, instead of just getting this, I can get the name as well. So let's go ahead and rerun this application. And now look at the DebugDuck. I still have that information right there, which is the @ sign. That's the default toString. Not very helpful, but I do have much more helpful DebugDuck name, SuperDuck. And so you can see them actually accessing that internal state of that name that we've already seen that works from when we're talking about an overloaded constructor, so I can get the information on that. So that's how the idea of a constructor works. Let's go ahead and make the rest of the getters for this, and so we can make that happen. So again, I like to do all my getters in the same order, so we'll just go ahead and do this really fast. So it's going to be all public, it's a string, it's going to be called getColor, because again, I use the same name as the variable following the camel case notation, so that means a capital C instead of just lowercase, and then return this dot color. And that gets me my color. Same thing for my int, it's going to be public, int, and then get questions answered. Again, no parameters, and return this dot questions answered. And finally my last one, public boolean get has answer, and return this dot has answer. And so now I can actually get all that information out right here. So I can access all those different components easily inside my other object that has access to now the public methods. So I have access to the public methods of all of them. These are the getters that I have access to. And so I can retrieve all of them inside my other class and access that private information by using the public getter methods. As we go through and do more development, some of our data members that belong to the object won't necessarily need to get a getter or a setter. And we'll make those decisions as we look at the more advanced class design and see what we actually need to make. But for now, especially, you want to make sure you get practice writing those methods, making sure you can access all the internal state components. And so we access the internal state of an object by making a getter. Every single getter is public for the visibility. The return type matches exactly what we have in the declarations section. The name of it is simply just get, and then the variable that we're working with using the magic of camel case notation. No parameters inside that, so just open and close parens. And the only thing we need to have inside the block of code is simply return and then this dot variable name. And we've got that taken care of. So that's how we can make a getter. We can access them in other classes by simply doing the instance name dot and the method that goes along with it. And now we can access that private data and use that right there. Take a look at the next video so we can see how you can use a setter and change that information and how you can write a toString and do even more. Thanks again and have a great day. Cheers.